Have you done everything right and yet still it wasn't enough? The truth of the matter is, there's likely not a problem with you, there's likely a system at play. Hey there, I'm Haley Jewell, and this is the She Knows System Show, where we prioritize public health storytelling through a feminist system lens. Through conversations about the systems that shape your health, your safety, your finances, your family, and your future, we follow the money, trace the policy, and name the power structures that were never designed with you in mind. Here, you will hear from survivors who have lived it, experts who study it, and advocates working to change it so that you can stop internalizing what was never yours to carry in the first place. Because when you understand the system, you stop blaming yourself for the outcomes the system produce. Heads up before we start, this episode does talk about domestic violence and sexual harassment, not in any graphic detail, but it is there. And so, if that's a lot for you today, please take care of yourself first. This episode will still be here at any time. Okay, let's get into it. Picture this, a sheriff in Wisconsin is sitting somewhere scrolling his Facebook page, and a congressman running for governor has, posted one of these "Be Afraid of Immigrants" videos. And under it, this sheriff, the top law enforcement officer in his whole county, leaves a one-word comment: "Yikes." Here's the thing, brother. You want to talk about who's dangerous in Wisconsin? Let's start by talking about you. Because the man who typed "yikes" is on a list kept by his own district attorney of officers whose word can't be trusted in a court of law. His own county board voted 19 to 1 that they have no confidence in him. And he is asking the people of Chippewa County to re-elect him this fall in 2026. So, yikes is right. Let's get into it. Hey there, and welcome to the She Knows Systems Show. I'm Haley, your host, and this is our very first episode. So, thank you so much for being here at the start of something. Here's what this show is. The She Knows System show is public health storytelling for women and gender diverse people, about the systems that shape our lives, our safety, our health, and how they are built, who they protect, who they quietly fail. We follow the money, we read the public records, and we connect the dots that are usually left disconnected on purpose. And right out of the gate, if this is something that sounds like it's your thing, or if you have ever felt like something was wrong with a system and everyone told you that there was something wrong with you, I really highly encourage you to subscribe now, early on. Most of our work will be housed on Substack, so that is a good place for you to start. You can subscribe for free, or you can pay to support the work even further. And we can talk about more ways to support later. But the single most useful thing you can do right now is to subscribe, like, comment to help tell the algorithm that we exist because, we are a brand new show. Moving on. So let me tell you who's talking because you should always understand and know who is talking, who you are getting your source of information from. So I'm a public health practitioner and a licensed paramedic. I have worked EMS and first response in Wisconsin, which means I have spent a lot of nights on scenes, hand in hand with law enforcement officers. And some of the finest people I have ever worked next to wear that badge. I want to say that clearly and early because this episode is going to be hard on a specific man. And I am not interested in the cartoon where every cop is a villain. That's lazy and it's not helpful and it's not true or what the evidence shows us. But working that closely with said system also means I have seen things, behavior and patterns, the way a culture can close ranks and does. And I have watched it firsthand, even when it has not directly landed on me. And here's the part most people don't expect coming from me. None of that is what has radicalized me. And honestly, I don't even love the word radicalized, but I'm going to use it because I already know that there's some of you loading up the comments section with communist, socialist, lib, TARD, all of the fun stuff. So let me just hand you the framing myself. If you want to know what actually shaped how I see the world, what radicalized me, it was not a political party. It was public health. It was growing up inside Wisconsin system, especially around domestic violence over and over and over again. It was working inside those systems then as a first responder, and it was learning the single most important fact in my entire field, in my opinion. And that fact is that 80% of our health outcomes are shaped outside of the doctor's office within the social determinants of health. So, to reiterate, nearly 80% of your health outcomes are determined outside of the healthcare system, outside of the hospital, out in the conditions of your life, such as housing, your income, your safety, whether the institutions around you protect or prey on you. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. Your health is political, your safety is political. You understand that whether the sheriff in your county is a person of integrity, that is a public health variable. So yeah, unfortunately, everything is political. And I'm saying this gently, but I need some of you to just grow up and accept that so that we can really actually get to the useful part, which is figuring out which levers we can still pull to build safe, healthy, vibrant, and flourishing communities, especially for women and gender diverse folks who the data shows get failed first and often worse. So that's the lens. Let's point it at Chippewa County. So here's how we even ended up here. Good old boy Tom Tiffany, congressman from northern Wisconsin, now running for governor, endorsed by DJ Trump himself, posts one of those campaign videos where the message is basically like, be afraid, super afraid. Democrats are putting illegal aliens ahead of you, The illegal aliens are out to get ya. Yeah, all of that bullshit. Whatever. But anywho, in the comments underneath that post about who is literally dangerous in Wisconsin, a sheriff drops by to agree with one word. Yikes. Yes, Mr. Travis Hakes. Yikes. That sheriff is Travis Hakes, Chippewa County Sheriff. And when I saw that comment, something in me just went, "Bleh." Absolutely not, sir, because I happen to know exactly the type of guy Travis Hakes is. And the gap between guy clutching pearls about who's dangerous and guy's actual public record is so wide he could drive a fucking squad car through it. So I replied, and full transparency, you can see here, because this show is honest, my reply was spicy. I said something. I made a joke about the flock cameras, and I'm going to be straight with you right now. I have absolutely no proof about Travis specifically in the flock cameras, okay? That was a rhetorical joke. I honestly would not be surprised if he has used the flock cameras, but I have absolutely no proof of that. So I'm not ascertaining that he has used flock cameras inappropriately. So, because the show runs on evidence, not trying to do just the vibes things, I'll show you the real documented pattern with those surveillance cameras later in the episode, because that is bad enough on its own and a major concern. But the core of what I said to this fool, every bit of that is on the record. And that's what this whole episode is, the receipts. Because here's the stakes, and I'm going to say it plainly. Travis Sakes, this fool here, is running for re-election as Chippewa County Sheriff. The primary is August 11th, 2026, and the general election is November 3rd, 2026. And I genuinely believe that the women and gender diverse people of Chippewa County are not safer with this man as their top cop. So if you live there or if you love someone who does, this one is especially for you. Let's make sure you can make an informed choice. So before we get into the man, let's do the systems part because, that's the whole point of the show. So if you don't understand the machine, you can't tell when it's broken, right? A county sheriff in Wisconsin is not a regular employee. A sheriff is elected. Your police chief gets hired and can get fired. Your sheriff answers to the voters, which sounds great and democratic, and it is until it isn't. So, how is the system supposed to keep what I'm going to lovingly call rot out of that office? There are a few major guardrails. First, certification. Wisconsin licenses its officers through a standards and training board. So, in theory, serious misconduct can cost you that license. In theory.
That's how I feel about that.
Okay. Anywho, second, and this one is the big one for today, the Brady list. This comes from the U.S. Supreme Court rulings. And the short version, if a prosecutor knows that a law enforcement officer has a credibility problem, i.e., they've been dishonest, they've got candor issues, the prosecutor is legally required to disclose that to the defense. So district attorneys keep a list of those officers. Being on it is, functionally like a scarlet letter, because if your honesty can be challenged on the stand, you can blow up the whole prosecution's case just by being involved. And yet, here is the system's failure baked right in, which we'll come back to later. But a Wisconsin Watch investigation found more than 360 current and former officers on these lists across 31 counties. And there is no consistent statewide public way to track them. So an officer can be do not call in one county and get hired clean in the next. And they often call these types of officers wandering officers. So keep that in the back of your pocket. And another, the emergency brake removal, which for an elected sheriff in Wisconsin is extraordinarily hard. A county board can't just fire a sheriff. They would essentially have to ask the governor to remove him. And so now the public health framing, because this is, the Shino system show, law enforcement is a social determinant of health. Whether that system that is supposed to protect you actually does is one of the biggest factors in your safety, your stress, your survival, especially if you are a woman, especially if you are queer or trans, especially if you've ever had to call for help and gotten hurt or worse outcomes instead. When the person running that system is the problem, that is not a personnel issue. That is a public health hazard with a fucking badge. So those are some of the main guardrails. Remember them as like a checklist as I walk you through this next part, because what's wild about Travis Hakes and this story isn't that the guardrails failed. It's that almost all of them worked, and yet he is still here. Okay, the man, Travis Hakes, this guy right here. He got into law enforcement back in 2006. He was a reserve officer, then part-time police chief in Elkmount, then the Chautauqua Police Department. He's also a realtor and a concealed carry instructor. Of fucking course he is. Anywho, he ran for the state assembly in 2016 and lost the primary. He ran for sheriff in 2018 and lost. Then in 2022, he ran again as a Republican and won, and was sworn in January of 2023. And then, unfortunately, pretty quickly, things started to come apart. So let's go beat by beat. Beat one, we can consider the text. So in May of 2023, a brand new dispatcher in the sheriff's department files a complaint. And according to the investigation report later released, the text from Hakes started 2 days after she began the job. They came from his personal cell phone. They were sent during hours she wasn't even at work. And this is in the report. Every single exchange was initiated by, what do you know? Him. Travis Hakes himself. The report described some of those messages as, and this is in the investigator's language, not mine, unequivocally sexual in nature. There was an ethnically charged meme. There was a suggestion that she sent the inappropriate text to his personal phone instead of his work phone, which, gosh, why would a person want to move a conversation off the official record? Strange. There was a remark implying that the other coworkers were sending him worse stuff. And I guess I'll pause there for a second, because he probably is right about that based on other experiences that I've had, but whatever. He's just being a whiny little bitch at this point because someone's holding him accountable. But there's this one detail that I really, really cannot stop thinking about as a first responder. And that is that he sent her a photo of himself in his backyard just holding a beer. The report notes that her discomfort on her own scale was already at a 3 or 4. After the beer photo, it jumped to an 8. So, brother, let me do the She Knows Systems thing where I steel man your side first because we're fair here. And Hake's explanation, per the reporting, was essentially, I was just trying to make the new employee feel welcome. Hmm. Okay, though, here is why that doesn't hold. The investigators specifically looked at whether he texted other new employees this way. And what do you know? He did not. The report found substantial evidence that this woman got a category of welcome no one else got. Don't accidentally single out one new hire with a personal phone, after hours, beer in the backyard, welcome. That's not hospitality. Like, come on, bro. Be fucking real and grow up. Okay, focusing on beat two, the work history. And honestly, this is where it gets even worse and frankly more disqualifying for a cop because this one is about honesty. Hake said he had resigned from his previous job at the Chautauqua Police Department in good standing, but according to the county board's statement, drawing on records from Chautauqua and the district attorney's office, that's not exactly what happened. The records show he resigned to avoid an investigation. What do you know? In comments he allegedly made to a domestic violence victim. Then, furthermore, suggesting he could modify or delete his body camera footage. Cute. I really need you to understand the gravity of that. A domestic violence victim. Body camera footage, the thing that exists specifically to protect victims and create an honest record. And the allegation is he floated, making it disappear. He then signed a separation agreement, waiving any right to be rehired there. So he was then placed on a performance plan at a prior chief job and given 48 hours to resign. This is when he was a part-time police chief in Elk Mound, Wisconsin, and records show he was put on a performance plan for not showing up, not following the board's directions, not meeting the minimum requirements of the job. And by his own letter, he was given 48 hours to resign. And one more, because this is really like the chef's kiss, hypocritical. He told the county's HR director that women had been passed over for jobs based on their gender. And HR investigated that claim. They found no evidence that it was true, which paused there because I actually kind of believe that that might be true based on my own personal experiences. But coming from the guy who actually got investigated for how he treated a woman in the workplace and also went around alleging that other people were the sexist, I mean, come on. Like, please. Whatever. So now here is the doozy. Here, this year announcing that he is up for re-election. What a winner. What a winner. Anywho, B3, let's focus on the Brady list because this is really the kicker. This announcement comes after the no confidence vote, and some sources cite 19 to 1, this source cites 20 to 1, whatever. It's majority, okay? It's the same picture that we're working with here. All of the dishonesty about his record, the body cam comments, this leads to the single most important fact in the entire episode, and that is that in December of 2023, as reported here, the Chippewa County District Attorney determined that Travis Hakes has to go on the Brady list. His own DA, the prosecutor whose job it is to win cases with him, has decided his credibility is a liability in court. And the DA's conclusion was blunt: to keep prosecutions from getting blown up by Hake's credibility problems, Hakes should avoid being actively involved in any investigations or handling of physical evidence. Ay, ay, ay. I want to make sure that that fully lands. The sheriff, the chief law enforcement officer of the entire county, has been advised by his own prosecutor that he basically can't do his own core police work. He can't run investigations. He can't touch evidence. Heck, even one of the county supervisors, they put it perfectly. If there's a murder, a robbery, something serious, and Hakes is the first officer on scene, how is that going to work? Like, it's a genuinely unanswerable question. Like, you have a sheriff who, in the most important moments of his job, is a problem to be worked around. Like, that's this guy, the guy who typed yikes about other people being dangerous, the guy who can't be trusted to hold a piece of evidence is worried about your threat level. Give me a fucking break. Moving on to beat 4, I'd like to focus on the no confidence vote some more. In February 2024, the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors did something dramatic. They voted 19 to 1 or 20 to 1, wherever source you're looking at, that they have no confidence in Travis Hake's continued leadership. They said in their own statement that he has a long history of not being credible. End quote. And going forward, they said they would not even take information directly from the sheriff. It had to route through his deputy chief. So at this point, this isn't just politicians either. The Chippewa County Deputy Sheriff's Association, mind you, his own deputies union, put out a statement saying they were troubled by the impact of his conduct on the agency. And when the people who work for you, let me just back up here. When these people are turning against you, okay, they have a very strong brotherhood. I promise you that. Okay. So when these people are turning against you, all right, the people who work for you and the people who oversee you and the prosecutor who works with you are all independently raising their hand to say, this is a problem. I'm sorry, man, but that is not a witch hunt. That's a consensus. And yes, one of the grossest parts probably is that the investigations cost Chippewa County taxpayers well over $100,000. And boy, does he love to bring that up a lot. And we'll get to why that argument actually backfires. But now, his defense for real this time, because I'm promising you here now in real time that it is possible to hold multiple truths at the same time. And so here is Travis Hake's actual side in his own public words, and I want you to really hear it. He has called the investigation a politically motivated trade and an agenda driven report meant to discredit him. He's repeatedly pointed at the Madison based attorney who did the investigation and the cost to taxpayers. He's framed himself as a duly elected sheriff being targeted by a cabal trying to overturn what the voters chose. He's questioned whether a formal complaint was even properly filed. And here is the big one, the one you must say out loud to be honest, because I guess at this point it is the truth. Up until now, at least in the present moment, the DA has not found sufficient evidence to file criminal charges against him. So that means that the district attorney reviewed it and concluded there was insufficient evidence to bring criminal charges, and Hakes has not been criminally charged. That is true. However, I will say that this is also true. So, not aging well for him still, to say the least. But it is true, and I'm putting it on screen, openly showing his side of the story. Okay, so why doesn't that clear him? Well, let's take a moment and let's actually critically think instead of, just vibing because a man said so and because his defense sounds reasonable and yet falls apart the second you apply any amount of pressure. Okay, it's a political cabal. A cabal of who? Exactly. Like, the vote was 19 to 1 or 20 to 1. That's not a partisan ambush. Like, that is a near unanimous body that includes people across the spectrum. And the Brady's determination didn't even come from that board. It came from a separate office, the DA's office. So you'd need the supervisors, the administrator, the prosecutor, and your own deputies union to all be in on the same conspiracy. And which, while that is not impossible, at some point, brother, like, the common denominator is you. His next flex, no criminal charges. Right. And like, that is the bar for prison, not the bar for being trusted with the most powerful law enforcement job in a county. Not a crime and fit to be sheriff are wildly different standards. A prosecutor declining to charge is not a character reference. The same review that produced no charges also produced the Brady listing. So you don't get to quote the half you like and bury the other half that you don't like. And this one's the greatest of them all. Look how much money they wasted investigating me. And I really love this one because it's like he fucking sets his own kitchen on fire and then it's him complaining about like a water bill from the fucking fire department. Like the cost exists because of the conduct that had to be investigated. Can we repeat that? What do you know? The consequences of your own actions catching up to you. You don't get to be the reason for the expense and get to be the victim of it. So, no, I wasn't charged with a crime is not the flex this man thinks it is. And the system looked at this man in multiple different ways, and different parts of it independently said, we have a problem here. So you might be asking, like, why the fuck is he still the sheriff? Which brings us to the part that should genuinely keep you up at night. Remember the guardrails we talked about earlier, like certification of the licensure, the Brady list, the county oversight removal, and how there are a few of them that worked. The board investigated and condemned him. The DA flagged him. His deputies have spoken up. The system, in that sense, has done its job of identifying the rot, and yet still here he is in the chair. And yet still here he is running for re-election. Well, why? Because of this other guardrail, the emergency brake, that seems to barely exist, that an elected sheriff in Wisconsin can't be fired by the county board. They explored it in this case and others, and they have to go to the governor. So with that, they're left with a no confidence vote, which is a statement, not a removal, and it has no teeth. The county supervisor said himself, from now until the election, it's status quo, and he just hopes Hakes doesn't end up the first cop at a murder scene. Let me tell you, sis, this is the system's lesson of this whole episode, and it's so much bigger than this one little bitch man. We have built a structure where literally the only real accountability for a sheriff now is at the ballot box, which means when every other guardrail catches a problem, there's still exactly only one tool left to fix it. And that would be you, the voter. I mean, that is the only break. That's the whole break at this point. And here is where my lived experience comes in, and where I'm going to keep this part general on purpose because it deserves more care than a single episode can provide it. I grew up inside the domestic violence systems in Wisconsin, not once, repeatedly, and it is woven throughout my family in ways that I'm still untangling to this day. And at one point, the person causing that harm to someone I love was himself, still to this day, sworn in Wisconsin law enforcement officer. I'm not going to name his name or his agency or the county tonight. That story is coming, and when it does, it's going to get its own episodes with the time and the rigor and the trauma-informed care that it actually requires. Tonight isn't about him, but I'll tell you what it taught me because it's the exact mechanism we're talking about here. I watched what happens when the person who's supposed to protect you is the threat, and he's also the one with the badge and the radio and the relationships and the benefit of the doubt. I've watched responders show up to a scene already knowing the person they were there about personally. And I have learned the hard way what it feels like to need the system to work and to realize the system knows the guy. So when the protector is the threat, the badge is not safety, it's cover. And later, working that same world as a paramedic, I have seen culture from the inside. The good people, and there are so many good people. I will tell you that. I can say that with a lot of confidence. And the way it can close ranks around the ones who aren't. I'm not telling you this for sympathy or to try and fearmonger. I am telling you this because it is my own lived data. It's lived evidence that maps exactly onto what the public records in Chippewa County are showing you. When a law enforcement officer with a documented credibility problem and a documented pattern around women stays in power, the people who pay for it are women and gender diverse folks who don't have a badge, a union, or a benefit of the doubt. And that's not a feeling, that's a public health risk distribution. And it's why I can't let Yikes be the end of the conversation. Unfortunately, there are too many officers who believe the rules don't apply to them. It's a Wisconsin pattern even in the last few months. Now, I can already hear someone going, okay, but that's one bad sheriff in one county. So let me show you that what Hakes represents, this idea that the rules are for other people, is a pattern currently in Wisconsin law enforcement. And I'm not even going to reach back super far into history. All we have to do is look at the last several months. Literally, just this past week, the police chief of Darlington, Svon Conway, was arrested for operating while intoxicated after police say he crashed into a retaining wall. And then what do you know? He drove away. And then he got cited for a hit and run. The chief of police. And here's the part that makes it a pattern and not just a bad night. A 2023 Wisconsin Department of Justice investigation had already found that Conway had forged training hour records for one of his officers. So, a documented integrity problem, and then this. Credibility first, impunity second. Sound familiar at all? Okay, so just as of June 4th, we have a few different officers from separate counties have been accused and or charged of misusing flock cameras. So let's break it down. In Menasha, an officer named Christian Morales was charged with misconduct in office, a felony, and bound over for trial after a complaint that he used the flock license plate camera system to track a woman's car. I'm going to tell you, based on my own lived experience, these men do this more often than you should feel comfortable with. Next, February 2026. We have a Milwaukee Police Department officer charged over flock searches. So in Milwaukee, an officer named Ayala, forgive me for my pronunciation, it is not my strong suit. Anywho, he was charged with misconduct after prosecutors say that he used that same flock system nearly 180 times to keep tabs on someone he was dating and that person's ex. He just resigned, though. No biggie. Moving to Kenosha County, a sheriff's deputy named Frank McGrath resigned after internal investigators found he used the department's flock system to monitor a coworker he was romantically involved with. And here is the true systems kicker, okay? The department gave him severance pay on his way out. Like, good Lord, guys. Good Lord. That's the real flock story. The one that I wouldn't joke claim about Hakes because I didn't need to. There's documented reality that this is its own problem and indictment, and that these surveillance tools are sold to us as public safety, but they're being used by officers to stalk. And they have the same root as the Hakes story, which is like power plus access plus a culture that protects its own minus accountability. Remember those, 360 plus Brady flagged officers across 31 counties, with no statewide system to effectively or systematically track them? Yeah, the so called wandering officers who are getting flagged in one place and then hired in the next. Well, Travis Hakes isn't an anomaly in that landscape. He is a symptom of it. The accountability infrastructure in this state is so patchy that an officer's credibility problem does not reliably follow him or her. And in Hakes' cases, the voters are the only people with the power to make him follow the rules. This is what I mean when I say that the rot is systemic. It's not about one rotten apple, it is about a barrel built without a bottom, frankly. And it's extremely terrifying and irreparably disgusting. Okay, so what do we do with this information? Bring it home with me. Through our public health lens, here's the whole thing in one breath, okay? Your safety is a health outcome. Law enforcement is a determinant of that outcome. When the person running it has a documented credibility problem and a documented pattern around women, and when the only working accountability tool left is your vote, then voting isn't just politics. It's literally harm reduction. It's literally a public health intervention. And it is literally probably one of the only levers the people of Wisconsin have left. in this particular case. So if you're in Chippewa County, please spread the word that Travis Hakes is up for re-election. The primary is August 11th. The general election is November 3rd, 2026. He has a challenger, so do your homework on everyone that is on the ballot. I really advise you to not strictly, purely, only just take my word for it. I have put every source in the show notes, and you can go through and read them yourselves and find other rabbit holes that I'm sure you will find. That's the whole point of this show. I don't want you to trust me. I want you to learn how to be equipped to critically think for yourself. So here is your homework. Here is your action list. 1, I need you to check your voter registration status today, not in November, not in August, today. 2, I need you to look up your sample ballot so you know every race, and especially, listen to me, especially the local ones that nobody campaigns at you about and you have no idea about, because those, I promise you, are the ones that touch your daily life the most. 3, if a public official's record matters to you, you can request public records yourself. That's your right in Wisconsin. And if you're interested, perhaps I can do an episode on exactly how to do that, because I am in the process of learning and requesting a lot of records myself. So let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd ever be interested in. But 4, please, this one is the most important because word of mouth is essential here. It is critical. Share this with someone in the Chippewa Valley. Seriously, share it through text or messenger, any form of communication. That is the most important way that this information can move, is by word of mouth, person to person, not necessarily algorithm to algorithm, because we all know that the algorithms are going to algorithm however they want, unfortunately, at the end of the day. So it's up to us humans to make sure that this information gets distributed to the individuals who need it most. And if you want Chino Systems to keep doing this, like the records, the receipts, the systems work, here's how you can help in order of how much it matters and how much it costs. First and foremost, you can subscribe for free or paid, but it is for free. And that also makes a huge difference. You can share this episode. That is also free. You can leave a comment, because engagement is a major currency through the algorithm, and also free. And if you have the means and you want to, and you believe in this work that I am trying to make available to women and gender diverse individuals in Wisconsin and beyond, you can directly support this work through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description of this video. None of this is required at all. What's most important to me is that individuals are able to get the information that is essential for them to live and lead healthy, happy, and safe lives. But all of your engagement is so very, very greatly appreciated, because this is independent and you are the reason that it exists. Before I go, because we started with a content note, we'll end with care. If you or someone you love is dealing with domestic violence, you are not alone, and it is not your fault. The National Domestic Violence Hotline number is 1-800-799-7233, and they have a text and chat option as well. And in Wisconsin, End Domestic Abuse Wisconsin can connect you to local advocates and resources. So please keep that in the back of your mind. You never know who may need that information or when it will come in use. I'm Haley, and this has been our very first episode of the She Knows Systems show. The system isn't failing by accident. A lot of the time, it's working exactly as designed. And our job is to see the design clearly enough to not only be able to navigate and survive it, but to be able to change it. So please keep your eyes open, stay hopeful, keep all records, and gently say it with me, y'all. We're grown-ups and everything is political, starting with our health. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourselves and see you the next episode.